So guys, training today is focused, a little bit mindset play, but also a little bit of focus where you should be putting your training. Now, there's a reason that this is my dog Toby and he's sat on my knee. Apologise for the quality of the video a little bit. He already wants to get off and disappear. So, he's sat literally underneath me. He's on his lead and he absolutely hates being on his lead when there's people around. So all he wants to do is go say hi. A couple of people who are scared of dogs, so we always keep them on the lead to keep them away. Don't use it on the Thursdays to do the video training, but need to watch today from there. So apologise if I'm a little bit distracted or the quality of communication isn't as good as I like. But back to the actual training. So focused around looking at what areas of recruitment scares you the most. For a lot of people it's retainers, for a ton of recruiters it's terms, some of that is vacancy take on. You might be early in your career and it's just speaking to a candidate, but identifying what area scares you and then focusing on that. Double down, spend 2 weeks developing, focusing on it. We will look at recruitment in different areas. This month we focused a lot on leads, lead generation process, lead communication, how to do outreach, how to win leads, etc. Just doing a bit of what's called a sprint. A lot of marketing sales people use that word, but a little bit of sprint, 2 week sprint on terms, 2 week sprint on pitching retainers, and you'll just be tons better. And the levels of how you need to learn on it and what you need to probably spend your time doing depending on who you are. So on the video, enjoy, and again, apologise for Toby distracting me a little bit. The first thing we're going to talk about today is what area of your recruitment game scares you the most. So when you first start in recruitment, the first thing that terrifies you is speaking to anyone, and the first person you speak to is usually candidates. The second thing that terrifies you is then interviewing those candidates. And then you find candidate capture calls really simple. And if I asked, maybe other than Connor, who's only just joined, but the rest of you, if I asked you to do a candidate capture call, there probably wouldn't be a level of fear that came upon you for that. You then obviously do your candidate interviews. You're then less fearful of candidate interviews. You're comfortable with them. You're then moving into BD dials. You're terrified of anyone answering, and all you do is hope that there will be a voicemail, and you're even terrified of leaving a voicemail. So you drag out those calls for as long as possible. You then move into actually speaking to people over the phone, and then you're terrified of that. You then move into the process where you hope the answer because you don't want to do a bloody another BD voicemail because you've done hundreds of them. And then you move into actually, okay, now I'm terrified of the vacancy take-on part, and I'm going to stuff that up. Then you move into being terrified of the actual full vacancy take-on, the first 5 questions. You move into being scared of warm BD calls. You don't get comfortable with that. You come to a vacancy take-on. You're then terrified of talking about terms. You're then terrified of pitching a retainer. But as you move forward, your comfort level continues. Problem with a lot of recruiters is their comfort level stops at, I now am able to take on a vacancy. I'm now comfortable, and I'll kind of leave the terms bit down to that conversation not being had. Very common in the recruitment industry that people can't effectively pitch retainers and can't go through the process. So, what area of your game scares you the most? With what you're looking at right now, what you need to face, what area of your game scares you the most? So, we're going to quickly run around the table, shout that out. Connor?
I'd say client related.
Okay, so anything client related at the moment? Sean?
I think certain types of candidates.
Certain types of candidates, okay. Mo?
Probably pitching retainers.
Retainers? Ollie?
And retainer objections.
Okay.
Yeah, just discussing a retainer.
Okay. Discussing the details of retainer. So, right, so when you look at that aspect, that's the area that you need to get better at and be more comfortable at. You've got 3 levels of operation that you're going to be able to look to improve that. 1 is that you learn, so you spend time reading your scripts. 2 is that you do emotional learning, which is role-playing. And 3, you do immersion, which is putting yourself in that level of experience. Now, from what I find in very simplistic perspectives, but not always, you have 2 types of recruiters. 1 is the person who immediately picks up the phone and starts ringing people before they've even read the bloody script. And 2 is the person who needs to read the script 5,000 times and then overthinks about it. Now, we have a mixture of people in this room of how they would action. I'll give you an example. Halima is the kind of person who will need to read a script, go over a script, learn a script, role-play a script, and then make a call. Jack is the kind of person, when he started, he just wanted to jump on the phone, and I was like, Jack, off the phone and start learning your script and start learning your process. So everybody sits into those 2 camps. You may be slightly one more one way, you might be slightly the other way, but everyone sits in those 2 camps. So if you think about what you need to do, you either need to start learning your scripts, you either start needing to do role play, or you either need to do immersion or action or experience the actual doing of it. You all need to do all three in order to become consistently coherent with what you need to do, but there's one of those things that you need to do more of. Those that learn and those that spend all their time reading, and you will know if you're that person because you can't pick up the phone, you always worry about what you're going to say, you're always thinking about what the next person's going to say next, then you need to spend more time doing. Because you've already spent the time learning and you've already spent the time reading the script, you need to spend more time doing. If you're the kind of person that do incredibly fast, all you're interested in is jumping on that phone, you get tongue-tied, you got a script in your first bloody conversation, even though you've been told to stick on the script because you'll get tongue-tied and lost in it, then you need to be learning your script. So if you naturally just pick up the phone and go for it, then if you're going through that process, you need to do more than you need to learn. If you're the kind of person that picks up immediately, you need to learn more than you do because it's what comes natural to you and it's what scares you the least. People who are terrified of the phone usually are people who need to learn. You need to do more doing to get more exposure to it, to get that emotional learning to a certain degree from it. So decide what you need to do with the different aspect that you need to run with and focus on that as a 2-week sprint type process to get that into comfort zone. Because when you started, you were terrified of speaking to a candidate. I don't care who you were all terrified. I was terrified speaking to someone you don't feel like you know, you've got the knowledge, you don't feel like you understand what you're doing, but you eventually do, and eventually you turn into the kind of person that's then comfortable with that. Okay, you're probably terrified of doing a smart reach email before you did that. There's all these levels of fear, but once it's in your comfort zone, you're okay. You need to get things into your comfort zone as quickly as possible for you to then continue with your career and then begin to develop things on top of it. Just because you can do a candidate capture call doesn't mean you can do it well. Just because you can do a BD call and your comfort zone level is good BD call doesn't mean you do it well. You then have to work on top of it. But if you're terrified of doing it, or you haven't learned your script well enough in order to operate and do, you will never get it done well at all. If at all. Okay, any questions on that?